Good evening from the National Weather Service office in Lake Charles. I'm meteorologist Donald Jones with your 7 p.m. update on the potential winter weather threat that we're expecting across the region on Tuesday, as well as the extreme cold that we're expecting to begin across the area as early as tomorrow. We are going to be looking at a strong cold front move through the area very late tonight into tomorrow morning. That's going to bring in some much cooler air and bitterly cold temperatures as we go through pretty much all of the upcoming week. And then, of course, we are talking about the risk for snow, sleet, and or freezing rain. The freezing rain probabilities have increased somewhat here this evening. Let me just gotta press the button over here. There we go. Okay. So we're going to talk about that. So there is still the possibility of all different types of winter precipitation, freezing rain, sleet, and snow. Right now, we're still looking at the highest probability being snow, but we're not ruling out the possibility of some freezing rain that could lead to some ice accumulations that would be particularly dangerous for road travel, as well as the potential for power outages. As always, this is a live interactive briefing, so if you have any questions as we go through our briefing, feel free to post them in our comment section, and we'll answer them just as soon as we wrap up our briefing. I see some people already posting in there. Janet's not looking forward to the cold. They can keep that stuff up north. Some of those northern areas have asked for their cold back and their snow back. Some areas haven't had a whole lot of snow that usually do see snow. Meanwhile, a large part of the Great Plains, the Midwest, saw a snowstorm a couple of weeks ago, and now we're dealing with it ourselves down here in the Deep South. Let's go ahead and jump into our briefing here this evening, and then we'll talk comments and stuff thereabouts. Again, we do have a very cold air mass that's going to be moving into the area tomorrow. We're going to be looking at temperatures dropping back into the 20s by tomorrow night and into Monday morning, and possibly even lower. We're looking at some teens as we go into Tuesday into Wednesday. It's also going to be quite windy. We're going to be looking at wind chill values falling into the single digits, possibly, especially Tuesday night into Wednesday. That is going to be the coldest night, and that's going to follow that potential snow that we're going to be seeing on Tuesday. These conditions are going to be life-threatening to those who have extended time outdoors or are improperly clothed to handle those temperatures and those wind chills. So this is a very significant cold spell that we're going to be dealing with this week. Damage also to unprotected pipes. This is going to be a full week of pipe preparations being necessary. Of course, any animals, dogs, cats, or the like, that are susceptible to extreme cold need to have some kind of shelter. And then also any kind of agricultural crops and vegetation that are threatened by freezing, especially citrus crops, definitely need to be protected pretty much all this upcoming week. We are still expecting winter precipitation across the region on Tuesday, beginning most likely shortly after midnight Tuesday and going through kind of the mid to late afternoon hours. We are still looking at all forms of winter precip. Snow, sleet, and freezing rain are all possible. It looks like snow is the most likely scenario right now, but we could wind up seeing something of a mix where we see some freezing rain transition over to snow, or vice versa, depending on exactly what time it is. And you have to keep in mind when we're talking about winter weather, it's not just the temperatures on the ground that make a difference, but also the temperatures higher up in the atmosphere. If the temperatures are warmer just off the surface, we get what's called a warm nose. So temperatures above freezing will cause snow to melt and then refreeze. That's how we get sleet, or potentially melt and then drop below freezing without actually freezing just before it hits the surface below freezing. That's how we get freezing rain. So all of those are going to be possible, and very small differences, not only in temperatures here at the surface, but also higher up, can make a difference in terms of what kind of precipitation we're actually going to see. Snowfall accumulations right now have come down ever so slightly from what we were looking at this morning. We were expecting 5 to 7 inches across a large part of the region. Those have come down to about 4 to 6 inches, still very significant and nearly record-breaking for parts of the area. Not all-time record-breaking. Our all-time record was way back in 1895, where we saw 20-plus inches of snow across parts of the region. But at least since any of us have been alive, this could be the most snowfall seen across the region. And that's going to be north of I-10, along I-10, and south. We're looking at 2 to 4 inches of snow, which is still a pretty significant accumulation, and certainly enough to provide opportunities to build snowmen and snow angels and all the fun snow things that you can do with your snow day. We are looking at cold weather advisories. In addition to that risk for winter precipitation, we actually have 3 of these currently in effect, and they're likely going to be extended pretty much every day this week. So we're looking at the first cold weather advisory from 3 a.m. until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. So this is temperatures or wind chills that are going to be 20 degrees or lower. And this is mainly for the wind chills that we're expecting to be 20 degrees or less going into tomorrow morning. Not tomorrow morning, Sunday morning, essentially. Wait, what did I say? Yeah, that's right. Right. I got to remember what day it is. Okay. Then we're going to have a second one. Let me, why is my graphic not moving? We're going to have another one from 9 p.m. Sunday night until noon on Monday. So again, we're going to be looking at temperatures and wind chills likely dropping to 20 degrees or lower at that point. And then a third one that's going to go from 6 p.m. Monday through most likely perhaps all day Wednesday. Maybe a little bit of a break Wednesday afternoon, but Wednesday is going to be extremely cold. We'll be lucky to get above freezing at all during the day on Wednesday. So these cold weather advisories are going to continue likely through at least Friday at this point. We do still have a winter storm watch. This was issued this morning. This is in effect from midnight Tuesday morning until midnight Wednesday morning. So roughly exactly a 24-hour period. And that's when we're most likely to see any kind of winter precip that we're going to see, snow, sleet, or freezing rain. I think from about midnight to 3 p.m. Tuesday is going to be our most likely time frame for winter precipitation, but we could continue to see flurries all the way through the evening hours and into Wednesday night. Here is a look at our latest forecast snowfall accumulations. You can see large swaths of 4 to 6 inches across large parts of southwest Louisiana into even parts of southeast Texas. Generally along and north of the I-10 corridor, and then south of the I-10 corridor, looking at roughly 2 to 4 inches of rainfall, or not rainfall, snowfall, all the way to the coast. Now, this could also include some mixture of snow and sleet. These are both combined, but generally we are still looking at significant accumulations across the area. Now, keep in mind, this is still subject to change and likely will change here over the next couple of days leading up to the event. It's already changed somewhat since this morning. These numbers are going to fluctuate back and forth a little bit. So don't focus on the exact numbers. Just focus on the fact that a large portion, if not the entire area, is going to see significant accumulations of sleet and snow as we go through the day on Tuesday. Now, in addition, as far as impacts, obviously we're going to be looking at the possibility of some power outages across the region. With these kind of snowfall totals, it is going to have the potential to build up on trees, power lines, tree branches that get knocked onto power lines. So we are going to be looking at a risk of power outages. Now, I don't expect widespread power outages everywhere, but you should plan for the possibility of losing power in these very cold conditions. Besides the snowfall itself, just the fact that we have this extreme cold means everyone's going to be using heaters a lot more. There's going to be a greater strain on the electrical grid, and that in and of itself is going to lead to the possibility of some power outages as well. So definitely want to have a plan for the possibility of some power outages, not just with this snowstorm, but also as we go through the entire week, because we're going to be looking at very, very bitterly cold temperatures all week, and that is going to continue to put a strain on the power grid throughout the entire week. In addition to the possible power outages, we could be looking at, and most likely will be looking at, hazardous road travel. I've been getting questions for the last couple of days. Am I going to be able to travel this time, this place, that place? Essentially, once we start seeing those snowfall accumulations, travel is going to become difficult and it's going to become hazardous. Somebody was asking me earlier today, is there a possibility that I-10 gets shut down due to ice accumulation? Yes, there is precedent for that. That has happened before. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it is a possibility, especially if we get some of that freezing rain instead of snow, or freezing rain kind of mixed in with that snow. That makes it more likely that roads will become slick and subject to being shut down. So area roads and bridges and overpasses are very likely to be shut down at some point on Tuesday. Interstates, not out of the realm of possibility, those could be shut down too, because especially the off ramps and on ramps, those tend to be elevated in most cases. So those will be likely to ice over much faster and subject to closure. So yes, Tuesday, you are, I'd say, fairly likely at this point to see at least some road closures. And if the roads do close, we're going to stay very close to freezing, if not below freezing, Tuesday night, and pretty much almost all day Wednesday. So if they do close, they're going to be closed most likely almost all day Wednesday, unless they get enough salt and sand trucks out there to kind of clear that ice off. but the ice is not going to melt off itself until probably sometime Thursday afternoon. Same thing as it relates to the actual snowfall. Any snow that does accumulate is likely going to stay on the ground pretty much all day Wednesday and maybe even into Thursday afternoon before beginning to start to melt off. So it's something that we're going to be dealing with for at least a couple of days. So it's not just like it's going to snow on Tuesday and that's it. We can go back to our normal lives. The snow and the ice is going to stick around for at least another couple of days because we're going to remain below freezing throughout that time. All right, this is a look at the timing of the snowfall at this point. We are looking at essentially, I've been talking about right around midnight. We may see a few flurries before midnight. You can see we've got roughly about a 10 to 15% chance of rain as we go through Monday evening. But the rain chances really ramp up after midnight with the highest rain, or rain. I keep saying rain. I'm so used to saying rain. Snow, winter precipitation chances, roughly between about 6 a.m. and noontime. You can see the highest overall probabilities there in the 70s to 80% range, close to 90%. That's when we're most likely to see snow, and that's when we're most likely to see the most significant accumulations, kind of Tuesday morning through midday. Begin to kind of taper off through the afternoon, still looking at pretty decent precipitation chances all the way through about 5 p.m., and then the precip should begin to slack off after that once we get into Tuesday evening. Very similar for central and southwest Louisiana. You can see still a low-end possibility for a few flakes Monday evening, but really kind of picking up after midnight Tuesday into Tuesday morning, continuing through the afternoon, and we could still see a few flakes, especially across south central Louisiana, into the kind of the mid to late evening hours, but the overall probabilities do come down significantly once we get past about sunset or thereabouts. This is the latest look at the probability of seeing snowfall amounts of any amount. So we're looking at these have actually continued to come up. We're now looking at about a 75 to 95% chance of seeing at least some amount of snowfall. So this would be as little as 1/100 of an inch of accumulation, but very high probabilities of seeing some amount of snowfall on Tuesday. This is the probabilities of seeing more than 2 inches of snowfall. So we're looking at roughly a 50 to 70% chance, depending on exactly where you are, of seeing at least 2 inches of snowfall across the region. Let me move me out of the way so you can see kind of the lower Acadiana areas, Iberia, St. Martin, St. Mary. Your probabilities are a little bit lower, looking at about a 30 to 40% chance of seeing greater than 2 inches of snow. So a little bit lower probabilities down that way. But these have also continued to come up. So we're looking at greater probabilities of a significant snowfall event. This is the probabilities of seeing more than 4 inches. And you can see roughly about a 30 to 50% chance of seeing more than 4 inches across the region. Essentially, that the I-10 corridor is kind of the roughly delineating factor with lower probabilities south of the I-10 corridor compared to north. So we're looking at about a 20 to 30% chance of more than 4 inches south of I-10 to the coastline, with that 30 to 50% chance further to the north. This is the probability of seeing more than 6 inches of snowfall. So you can see we're looking at about a 30 to 40% chance. This is mainly going to be across parts of central Louisiana, interior parts of southeast Texas, so Vernon, Rapides, Avoyelles, northern Beauregard, northern Allen, northern Evangeline, northern St. Landry. Those areas, you're looking at the highest overall possibility of seeing more than 6 inches of snowfall at this point. It's still only about a 30 to 40% chance, but it is there. Closer to the I-10 corridor, we're looking closer to about a 5 to 20% chance of seeing more than 6 inches of snowfall. So not particularly likely at this point, but not out of the realm of possibility either. Now, looking at the possibility of freezing rain and ice accumulation, we're looking at these numbers have actually come up somewhat. We're looking at about a 20 to 40% chance of seeing ice accumulation of, any amount. And this is mainly going to be along and south of the I-10 corridor. You see the higher overall probabilities there. Pretty much parallels the I-10 corridor pretty succinctly there. Those are the areas highlighted in the reds and oranges. As you get further to the north, the overall probability decreases for the risk of freezing rain. So we're looking at about a 5 to 10% chance for parts of Hardin, Jasper, Newton counties. And then roughly about a 20% chance for, say, Beauregard, Allen, Evangeline, St. Landry. Then the higher probabilities as you get closer to the coast for that freezing rain. This is the probability of seeing at least a 1/10 of an inch or more of freezing rain. This has also come up somewhat. It's still low, but there is the possibility. We're looking at roughly about a 10 to 20% chance across parts of Jefferson and Orange counties, Cameron, Calcasieu, Jeff Davis, over towards Lafayette, Vermilion, Iberia, St. Martin, St. Mary. This is the point at which we start seeing significant impacts from ice accumulation on roadways, on trees, on power lines. So we're still looking at a low probability, but these probabilities have come up compared to where they were yesterday and the day before. So that is a bit concerning. Snow is a lot easier to handle than ice. If we start seeing more in the way of an ice problem, that's going to be a bigger issue in terms of possible negative impacts for the area. Now, I just want to go through this really quickly. Being as it's very likely we are going to see some snowfall accumulations, I want to talk very quickly about how to measure snow. Because, of course, you want to know how much snow did we get. And, of course, we here at the Weather Service want to know how much snowfall you got, too. Being as this does have the potential to be a somewhat historic event, we want to be able to document it correctly. So there's the ideal way to measure snow, and then there's the, if you have it on hand, way to measure snow. Ideally, you want to have some kind of what we call a snow board. And ideally it would be painted white, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a wooden board. A cardboard board, something like that, poster board would work just as effectively. But white, actually, it doesn't retain heat as much, so it doesn't have the potential to melt the snow off. Basically what you would do is just place this out in the yard, then use a yardstick or any kind of rigid measuring stick to actually measure the snow on the board as it falls and once the snowfall actually ends. Now, if you don't have one of these, if you don't have ready access to white cardboard or some kind of board you can put outside, you can measure it straight on the ground. That's acceptable too. But again, the important thing is that we use a rigid yardstick or a rigid ruler. A tape measure is not going to work. It bends, it moves around. That's not an effective way to measure. So if you're gonna measure, use a rigid yardstick or ruler to do so, and ideally take a picture of it and feel free to send it to us. We absolutely want your reports. You can send it to us here on Facebook, on X, on Instagram. So lots of ways you can send it to us, either a report or a picture whenever we actually get to that point. Okay, that was a graphic that I meant to make and didn't. Let's go ahead and jump into talking about the extreme cold now. We are going to be looking at, besides the overall winter weather risk, we're going to be looking at extreme cold for at least the next 4 to 5 days, if not longer than that. So these are our forecast low temperatures for Sunday night into Monday morning. You can see we're looking at essentially lower 20s across central Louisiana, interior parts of southeast Texas, mid-20s along the I-10 corridor, and then upper 20s along the immediate coastline. Going into Monday night and Tuesday, very much the same thing. We're still looking at lower 20s across central Louisiana, along the I-10 corridor, mid-20s, and then upper 20s again right along the immediate coastline. For Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, this is going to be our coldest night of this event by far. We're going to be looking at mid-teens across pretty much the entire area away from the immediate coastline, and lower 20s all the way down to the coast and getting offshore. And this doesn't even account for those winds and the potential wind chill factor. These are the actual low temperatures that are being forecast for Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. By Wednesday night into Thursday morning, again, pretty much very similar. We're looking at mid to upper teens across the region, mid-teens across central Louisiana, upper teens to right around 20 along the I-10 corridor, and then upper 20s along the immediate coastline. Thursday night into Friday morning, we're going to be a little bit warmer, mid-20s across central Louisiana, upper 20s along the I-10 corridor, and maybe right at or slightly above freezing right along the immediate coastline. So we're looking at least 4 consecutive nights of hard freezing conditions across the region, if not longer than that. This will begin to modify, I think, as we go into next weekend, but it's still going to be cool. This just graphic kind of summarizes what we just talked about here. These are kind of the 3-hour breakdowns of temperatures. This is for southeast Texas. You can see I've highlighted the area of most dangerous temperatures there in the purple box, which is pretty much any time from tomorrow evening all the way through kind of midday Thursday. So we'll essentially be in the 30s that entire time or lower, with teens expected Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. Same graphic here for central and southwest Louisiana. You can see the kind of the light and dark blues there are the times that we're going to spend in the teens, which is going to be Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, and again, Wednesday night into Thursday morning. Now, once we add those wind gusts in, we are expecting winds to pick up behind the cold front. So you can see those wind gusts as we get into Sunday in the 20, 25 mile an hour range. And those are going to continue around 20 miles an hour. You can see Tuesday picking back up with the potential snow event, 25 mile an hour wind gusts in addition to the snow and extreme cold. And it's going to be positively miserable out there. Same thing for our central and southwest Louisiana cities. You can see we're looking at gusts upwards to close to 30 miles per hour across parts of the area Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Now, once we add those in and we start talking about our wind chill values, we're looking at teens for Sunday night into Monday, pretty much across the entire region. Now, we've been talking about, if you've watched any of our other briefings here, the wind chill values don't have any effect on pipes. This is strictly how the air feels on your skin. So we're going to be looking at those feels like temperatures in the teens for Sunday night into Monday. Same thing, Monday night into Tuesday. Again, we're kind of mid-teens. As we get into Tuesday night into Wednesday, we're talking about single digits in some areas. So we're looking at 7, 8 degrees for those feels like temperatures across parts of the area Tuesday night into Wednesday, because we're going to be looking at 25 plus mile an hour wind gusts and those temperatures in the lower 20s to teens. So that's going to definitely drop the temperatures to extremely cold levels, especially for this part of the world. Wednesday night into Thursday, we're actually warmer. We're back in the teens again for our feels like temperatures. So that'll actually feel downright balmy compared to Tuesday night into Wednesday. Still bitterly cold, dangerously cold, though, across the region. This is, again, a summary page of our minimum wind chill values for next week. These are our Southeast Texas cities. We're looking at, again, teens across a long duration period, Tuesday into Wednesday. But we're also going to be looking at teens across the region early Monday morning, as well as early Thursday morning. This is the same thing for our central and southwest Louisiana cities. Again, teens expected late Sunday night into Monday morning, continuing probably through at least the early afternoon, and then a large duration period of teens and lower 20s, essentially from late Monday night all the way through really Thursday, kind of late morning. So there's going to be a long duration period of extremely cold, dangerously cold wind chill values across the region. Now let's talk quickly about the amount of time we're expecting to be below freezing. Sunday night into Monday, you can see the longest duration period below freezing is across central Louisiana and interior parts of southeast Texas, where we're looking at 12 to 15 hours below freezing. Along the I-10 corridor, still pretty significant, 9 to 10 hours expected to be below freezing. Even along the immediate coastline, 4 to as much as 8 hours below freezing. On average, pipes that are exposed to the air begin to freeze after about 6 hours. So this is certainly going to be long enough to freeze pipes as early as tomorrow night. So any preparations for pipes need to be completed tonight or tomorrow morning, because temperatures will be dropping through the day, and we'll be looking at this long duration freeze by tomorrow night. Monday night into Tuesday, very similar, still looking at between about 12 to 15 hours below freezing across central Louisiana and interior parts of southeast Texas, 7 to 9 hours along the I-10 corridor, and then about 1 to 6 hours or thereabout right along the immediate coastline. Tuesday night into Wednesday, it is very likely that most of the area will not get above freezing at any point Tuesday night into Wednesday. This is a 24-hour forecast, and you can see most of the areas are listed as 24. So that means that essentially we're not going to get above freezing any point during the day on Wednesday. So from essentially early evening Tuesday evening all the way through Wednesday, we're going to be below freezing across just about the entire region away from the immediate coastline. So altogether, we'll be looking at roughly about 36 to 40 hours consecutively below freezing. You can see once we get into the Wednesday night, Thursday time frame, we're still looking at very long duration periods below freezing. And then Thursday night into Friday, we're going to be looking at still 12 plus hours below freezing across central Louisiana and interior parts of southeast Texas. 5 to 6 hours, so still pipe busting worthy along the I-10 corridor. We may not quite get to freezing right along the immediate coastline by Thursday night into Friday, but away from there, we are going to be looking at significant periods of time below freezing. So that's what we have here for you this evening from the National Weather Service. We are going to do another one of these updates, briefing updates at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, and likely another one tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. We're kind of in a rhythm here of the 7 and 7, so I think we're going to keep that going. So be on the lookout for that. Our next briefing will be tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., and then we'll have another one tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. I'm going to be happy to answer your questions here over the next little while, so if you have any, stick around, throw them in there, and I'll be happy to talk to you about that. If not, feel free to head out. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning or tomorrow evening if you don't want to get up that early. And for those of you who don't want to get up that early but do want to see the briefing, it is available as a recording just as soon as we wrap up the briefing on Facebook, YouTube, and X. So lots of ways to watch it. If you can't catch it live, you can always catch it as a recording. Let me go ahead and back up here, and I'll check to see if we do have any questions. I'm going to throw the snow totals back up there because that's probably the most interesting graphic. Let me see if I can make that full screen. Natalie says, do we measure with a man's ruler or a woman's ruler? Because those inches measure differently sometimes. Natalie, shut up. I'm not even going to touch that. This is a G-rated show. Leslie's asking, I guess, my email address. Is it donald.jones@noaa.gov? Yes, it is. If you're asking for purposes of sending us storm reports or precipitation reports, yeah, you can absolutely send it to my email. It's on the screen there under Leslie's name. It's my name with a dot in the middle, so donald.jones@noaa, NOAA.gov. You can also email me if you have a question. Let's see. Lisa says, but most days will be above freezing except for Tuesday. That's not exactly true. We are expecting temperatures to stay at or below freezing pretty much all day Wednesday as well. So Tuesday and Wednesday there'll be very little, if any, amount of time above freezing. And for the remainder of the days, if we do get above freezing, it'll only be for a very short period of time. Jonathan says, if you have a snowboard, you can measure every 6 hours. As long as you clear the board after each measurement, snow will settle some if you do a total 24-hour amount, but a 24-hour amount is acceptable. Yeah, he's absolutely right. Jonathan's our senior service hydrologist here, and he knows a good bit about that as well. Phyllis says, Donald, which weather map do you consider the most reliable? Because the Euro last I saw posted 7 inches for New Iberia. Phyllis, we don't do individual computer models here. So I'm not going to give you one versus another because every one has its different strengths and weaknesses. And what you have to keep in mind about the Euro model that you're looking at, that's just one run of what we call an ensemble. There are many, many different variations on even that one Euro model. You're only seeing one, but there's actually 50 plus of them that are run every 6 hours. So we don't choose one model over another. We use what's called an ensemble approach, where we take a conglomeration of all of the computer models, and we look for patterns and trends within that. So no, there is not a single one that's more reliable than another. Because that version of the Euro that you saw right now with 7 inches could very well have nothing in 6 hours from now. The comedian asks, how will the roads be? Once we start seeing accumulations across the area, probably by Tuesday morning or shortly thereafter, the roads are going to become slick. And if we start seeing some freezing rain accumulations, like is still a possibility, they could get slick even faster. So don't be surprised if we do see some road closures, especially bridges and overpasses. Those freeze up very quickly and ice up very quickly. So those will be subject to being closed. And that includes the interstates. That includes I-10. Those could potentially be closed, especially on and off ramps, which are usually elevated. Bryce asks, do you think any convective snow banding will occur as the storm passes through southeast Texas? Does it compare to training from a rain event? It can, yeah. Very similar to training in a rain event. Snow bands can train and drop larger swaths of snow accumulation over individual areas, and then significantly less elsewhere. That's most evident when we're talking about lake effect snow, which is very common around the Great Lakes, where you could have feet of snow and then 5 miles away, absolutely nothing. We don't usually have that too much here. We did see it once a few years ago along Toledo Bend, where we did actually have some lake effect snow off of Toledo Bend, but that's fairly uncommon. Even so, though, we can get bands of snow that will drop higher amounts in certain areas than others, and that is kind of a training situation, yes. As far as convective snow, some of the models that we're looking at, the fact that we're getting these kind of accumulations makes me think that they are picking up on the possibility of some stronger bands of snow in there. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if we do see a few of those. Now, exactly where they're going to occur, we can't say for certain in advance, but it is possible we could see some of that. Stephen asks, how long will the snow last if we get any? Again, the snow is going to fall on Tuesday. We're not going to get above freezing probably at any point on Wednesday, or if we do, it's going to be very, very briefly. So I think any snow that falls, we're going to be seeing it still on the ground at least through Thursday afternoon. And even then, if it survives Thursday afternoon and gets into to where we're below freezing again, it would carry on until Friday. So I'd say at least Thursday afternoon, possibly as late as Friday. Sonoma says, so whatever precip ends up falling, it's not going to melt until well into the weekend. Maybe by Friday. We are expected to spend more significant amount of time above freezing on Friday. But yeah, it will be on the ground for a couple of days. Lennon says, snow day, gumbo party at Donald's house. Look, I don't have enough gumbo for everybody. I do have some. But first off, you got to get to my house, and that may be dicey come with the roads. So I suggest making gumbo at your own house as opposed to coming to mine. My house ain't that big. Eric says, if there is ice on the road Tuesday, how long before the roads are safe? Thursday noon? Possibly Thursday afternoon. That's the first time we're really expected to get significantly above freezing for any significant length of time. Now, that said, depending on the resources that are available for some areas, sand and or salt may be enough to get some roads back open before that. But as far as when it's actually going to melt off of the roadways, Thursday afternoon is the most likely at this point. Janine asks, will it be safe to drive over the 210 bridge tomorrow morning? Yeah, it'll be fine. We're not expecting any kind of winter precip until Tuesday. It's going to be breezy up there, but that'll be about it. Shelby asks, so my question is power going to be a greater concern? Goes back in 2021. It was not an issue for me, at least. It is going to be a concern. Not everybody is going to lose power. In fact, I'd say the majority of people are going to keep power. But I do expect that if this forecast verifies, there are going to be some power outages. So it's prudent that everyone prepare for the potential for power outages. Have alternative sources of heat, whether that's a generator, lots of blankets and coats and such is also an option. You got your hand warmers, fireplace for fires. There are plenty of alternative sources of heat out there, not necessarily quite as efficient, but that's worth planning for because some people are likely going to lose power at some point. Melinda asks, will I be able to drive to Houston on Wednesday? Well, it depends on where you're coming from, but I'd say that's going to be very, very dicey. Chances are you're going to have some road closures. You may not be able to get out of town to get to Houston on Wednesday. Sue asked if your water heater is in the attic, can the cold affect it or no? It depends how well insulated your attic is, and if your hot water heater is insulated. Usually, water heaters are insulated for efficiency purposes, but as long as there's hot water in it and you still have electricity, that's not going to be a problem. Now, I did hear it suggested that you actually, if you have an attic, a roof attic, to open that up and let some of the warmer air from the house into the attic. If you have pipes up that way, so obviously if you have a water heater, you have pipes running somewhere, so that may be a good idea on the colder nights to open, at least crack open your attic to let some of that heat up there, so the attic temperature doesn't drop below freezing. Jared says, no question here, just a northerner that thought this was a great overview. Hope everyone prepares down there, and hope you telling people how to set up a snowboard get you some great snow measurements. I hope so too. Yeah, we'll do the best we can. We'll try to keep letting people know how to do that, because this is something we definitely want to document if it does wind up panning out this way. But thank you for the good wishes up there in the Great White North, Jared. Melinda asks how much wind is anticipated. We're going to be looking at wind speeds, pretty gusty. Let me pull the graphics back up here. So this is our Southeast Texas wind gusts. So we're looking at wind gusts tomorrow, 20, 25 miles an hour. We're still going to be looking at kind of gusting to right around 20 for most of the day on Monday. And then on Tuesday, we're going to be gusting back to 25 miles an hour again. This is Southeast Texas. But looking at central and southwest Louisiana, very similar. We're still looking at gusts to 25, possibly gusts as high as 30 across parts of the area on Tuesday. So it is going to be very windy to go along with the potential winter precip that we see. Amber asks, will driving conditions improve by Wednesday or Thursday? If the roads shut down again because of the snow or ice, I think we're not going to get above freezing. Or if we do, it's only going to be very briefly on Wednesday. Let me show you our numbers here. You can see our forecast values here. So if you look at the temperatures on Wednesday, we may get above freezing in a few locations briefly Wednesday afternoon. But in general, it's going to stay below freezing most of the day. So if the roads are closed due to ice, they're not going to melt off most likely on Wednesday. So it wouldn't be until Thursday afternoon. You can see we get well above freezing Thursday afternoon that we start seeing that ice melt off again. Rebecca asked, what time Tuesday do you expect that snow to start? We're expecting the snow to start probably, let me see if I can, there's my graphics. Oh, I passed them up. We're looking at probably the most of it's going to begin after midnight, Monday night, so early Tuesday morning, really ramping up kind of after sunrise through about noontime Tuesday morning, and then still kind of continuing through the early to mid-afternoon. You can see we've still got decent rain chance or precip chances all the way through about 5 p.m. Same thing for our central and southwest Louisiana city. So it's going to be, it's probably not going to be constant all day, but it is going to be a pretty high probability of snow throughout the day. And there is the possibility we could see a few flurries as late as late Monday evening. Tanya asks, how will the roads be Wednesday? Potentially dicey. We could potentially be looking at a fair amount of road closures, including the interstate. I can't forecast exactly what the road conditions are going to be, but with these kind of accumulations that we're expecting, I would expect some road closures. Jim says, Donald, we appreciate your knowledge, candor, and ability to share it with us in a meaningful way. Thank you. Well, thank you, Jim. I appreciate that. Jenna says, why isn't Port Arthur in this map? It's part of the Golden Triangle, because if we put Port Arthur in there, it would the numbers and name would overlap the other numbers that are in there. So we can't put every single town and city on here, but you can kind of see where you are in Port Arthur in Jefferson County, kind of southeast of Beaumont there, right on the on Sabine Lake. So you can extrapolate. The Beaumont's right at 3 to 4. You can expect 3 to 4 as well in the Port Arthur area. Lake Texas says, will it increase more snow? I just want to know since I'm a child and definitely like snow. We all like snow, I think. The snow, especially in the deep south, brings out our inner child. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not going to lie. But nonetheless, yeah, we expect these numbers are going to change in the next couple of days. They actually have come down a little bit from this morning. They may go back up again. They may come down a little bit more. The bottom line is we are going to be looking at, I think, some decent accumulations, whether it's 2 inches, 4 inches. You know, it's definitely going to be enough to make a snowman and play around in. So right now, we're feeling pretty confident in that. Chris and Kathy says, when will it turn cold tomorrow? Let me pull my numbers back up here. Go, 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 go. Okay. So this is, you can see we're going to be in the 40s by about noon tomorrow afternoon, kind of continuing through 3 p.m. and then dropping below freezing shortly after sunset between about 6 and 9 p.m. So this frontal boundary that we're going to be looking at, it's going to be a dry frontal boundary, so it's not going to rain or anything, but we're going to be looking at it coming through late tonight, so temperatures will be decreasing kind of through the day tomorrow. Leslie asks, is the snow going to be really wet? And for those of you who don't know the difference between wet snow and dry snow, yes, all snow is not necessarily wet, but there's what's called a snow to liquid water ratio. And it essentially, what it means is the amount of liquid water that is in a snow, an amount of snow when it's melted down. Most of our snow here in the Deep South tends to be very wet. It usually takes very dry conditions to get a dry snow where that ratio gets much higher. Usually that's a mountainous type thing. Usually in the Deep South, most of our snow is very wet. Which, for those of you who are curious, wet snow is actually really good for building snowmen. Dry snow doesn't stick together, it doesn't clump together, or to have a snowball fight. Dry snow just kind of falls apart. Heather asked, what are the chances to lose power in Southwest Lake Charles? I can't give you odds necessarily, but I think there are going to be some power outages across Lake Charles. I can't tell you exactly what your chances are, though, of losing power. Michael asks, do you think this winter weather event could be historic? I think just about all winter weather events across our area are historic. Because they're so rare. You know, just as an example, here in Lake Charles, we only get any amount of measurable snow once every 6 years or so. And this has the potential to be one of the highest snowfall totals that we've seen in Lake Charles in a really long time, possibly in any of our lifetimes. The record for Lake Charles and most of the area was set way back in 1895, and that was 20 inches. The next highest is 4 inches. So we do have a chance of potentially being higher than that, and that would be the most amount of snow in this area since any of us have been alive. So yeah, in that respect, it will be historic. Sue said, would you suggest wrapping your hot water heater pipes if it's in the attic? If there's no insulation in your attic, if your pipes aren't insulated, I would say that's probably a good idea. Your attic is going to get a lot colder than the interior part of your house and potentially could get below freezing. So yeah, I would say that's a good idea. Eric says, can we have a snow shirt on the briefings once it starts snowing? You want me to put a white shirt on instead for snow? Lake Texas says, is it going to snow at 11 p.m.? My dad is returning from Mexico on Monday. We could have a few snow flurries by 11 p.m. Monday night. I don't think it's going to be enough to cause any kind of significant impact. So I think flights will be able to get in all right. At that point, the more significant snow is going to be on Tuesday. So I think, at least as it stands right now, flights will be okay. Natalie says, and remember, Donald said to salt the ground, and Tony's is okay, but not cost effective. We season everything, but this can be passed on. Yeah, again, Tony's is expensive. You don't want to waste that by dumping it on the ground. That's good stuff. Gina says, I work in healthcare and repeat, so I have to be able to make it into work. Will the minimal traffic warming the roads mean the possibility of ice and slick roads after the temps start dropping again Tuesday night? My truck is on the light side. Yes, the whatever kind of traffic that's on the roadways, that's likely not going to be enough to warm them with the kind of temperatures we're talking about. We're talking, again, teens with wind chill values in the single digits, but the teens will be the bigger issue for Tuesday night. No amount of traffic is going to warm roads up that much. So, yeah, I do expect that if you start seeing ice and slick roads during the day Tuesday, they're going to last into Tuesday night. They're probably going to last most of the day Wednesday, and they may even last to as late as Thursday afternoon. Brian says it has to be below freezing for a week to kill the mosquito. Well, we're going to be there for at least probably 5 days or so. So if we don't kill them, we're going to at least make them really upset. Phyllis says, I didn't even think about a hot water heater. We have a tankless one outside. I wonder if we need to do anything. As long as you still have power, you don't have to do anything. If you lose power, you need to drain the tankless hot water heater, though, because it will freeze. Tom's asking about the wind direction. Is it coming out of the north or west? The winds are going to be generally out of the north or northeast. Let me pull my wind graphic back up. I got to find it. It's around here somewhere. There it is. You can see the little arrows there point to the direction that the winds are going to be. So we're going to be looking at a north wind pretty much all day Saturday and Sunday, kind of switching to northeasterly as we get into Monday, and continued northeasterly as we get into Tuesday. And again, we're going to be gusting to 25 to 30 miles an hour during that time. So kind of from northwest to northeast is what we're going to be looking at for this Sunday, Monday, Tuesday time frame. Dustin asks, is that windy enough to consider it a blizzard? The criteria for a blizzard is 35 miles an hour or higher. So we're not far from it. We're forecasting gusts to 30. But you would need 35 mile an hour winds, you need heavy snowfall, and you need visibilities to be reduced to a quarter mile or less. That's the criteria to get a blizzard. I don't know that we're going to reach that, but we are much closer to it than I would ever imagine we would be. As far as I know, this office has never issued a blizzard warning. If we do, that would be a first. And it's surprising me that we're even talking about it at this point. So yeah, we're not too far off from that, but we're not there, at least not in the forecast yet. Okay, let's see. Just running through comments, trying to find the questions. Jeff asks, how much snowfall is too much for a roof to support? Well, that's going to depend on the strength of your roof. That question kind of goes beyond my knowledge base. That gets into architecture and infrastructure and all that. I really don't have a solid answer for you, Jeff. I'm sorry. I wish I did, but I don't. But just the construction of your roof and your house in general would play a significant role in that. And also, essentially how wet or dry the snow is. The wetter the snow, the heavier it's going to be. The drier the snow, the higher that ratio from liquid to solid water plays a big part in in how much weight is put on your roof from snow. Kevin asks, can I get out on a flight Wednesday? The problem with flying is not going to be the aircraft. There's plenty of de-icing agents for aircraft, so that's not a concern. The issue is whether the runways are going to ice over. If the runways ice over, then planes can't take off. Now, most airports do have resources to deal with icing on runways the same way they deal with icing on roadways. But some are better about that than others, and some may not have the manpower to administer that. So it could potentially, flights could get delayed and or canceled Wednesday as a result of that. I can't say for certain whether you will or won't, but it is a possibility. Gay asks, are you going to go out in the snow for a live briefing like Jim Cantore? No. Besides the fact that my cameras don't go out there, I say no. Maybe. We'll see. Probably not, but you never know. The mood might strike me. I don't know what I would say. I'd go out there and be like, hey, it's snowing, in case you didn't know, in case we haven't been talking about it for a week. Michael asks, what are the chances of us getting some thunder snow? Thunder snow by itself is pretty rare. The fact that we're getting snow at all is should be sufficient for your rarity needs. I don't know if we need thunder snow on top of that. We don't really forecast thunder snow. Thunder snow is essentially when you get lightning and thunder within a snowstorm. The squall would have to be pretty strong. You'd have to have, like we talked about earlier, one of those convective squalls. Not saying it's completely out of the realm of possibility, but again, I think that's a very rare occurrence in any snowstorm, and even more so, I think, down here. Natalie says, Donald, seriously, we love you, but can we go back to hurricane lives? I mean, Elsa needs to go away. Yeah, we're going to get back there about 6 months from now, 5 months from now. It's coming. I don't want to think about it. Justin says, any word on closing the bridge? They're not going to make a decision on closing the bridge until the bridge actually starts to ice over. So that'll be a day of event. They're not going to close the bridge, in advance of the snow. It's not going to be until conditions actually become hazardous on the bridge that they'll close them. So they'll keep that bridge open as long as it's safe to do so. Kathy asks, do you think there'll be ice on the electrical lines enough to cause breakage? At this point, no, but it is a possibility. We are still looking at a risk of some freezing rain across the area. Let me pull up those probabilities for you here. So right now we're looking at roughly about a 20 to 40% chance of freezing rain, essentially along and south of the I-10 corridor. It's the freezing rain, that could potentially cause the ice to build up on power lines and cause those power outages. The overall risk is still relatively low, and usually this is the probabilities of seeing any amount of freezing rain. We usually need about 1/10 of an inch or more before we start seeing significant power outages from freezing rain, and those probabilities are also still relatively low. We're looking at about a 10 to 20% chance, again, mainly along and south of the I-10 corridor. So it's not zero, but those probabilities are still fairly low at this point. Eileen asks, what about the Atchafalaya Basin Bridge? We are expecting snow accumulations across the Atchafalaya. So yeah, the Atchafalaya Basin Bridge is subject to being closed for, you can see the accumulations there. I don't have them highlighted in exact amounts, but generally looking at between about 2 to 4 inches of snow accumulation along the Atchafalaya Bridge. So there is the possibility that that bridge could also be closed. Claire asks, when can we expect roads to get bad? From what I'm seeing right now, probably sometime by Tuesday morning, between about 6 a.m. and noon is when I'd expect conditions to really start to deteriorate from a road perspective. Claudia asks, is this a named storm? The National Weather Service does not name winter storms. That's a Weather Channel thing, and we do not acknowledge their naming convention. So I don't know, and I'm not allowed to care. Aaron asks, will the electrical people be able to fix the lines if power does go out and the lines are frozen? Yeah, it's not that the ice is not going to be an issue, because if the lines break, they'll have to put new lines up anyway. The issue that they're going to be dealing with is those strong winds, especially on Tuesday. We're going to be looking at those wind gusts to 30 miles an hour. Getting up in those bucket trucks, they have limits to how strong the winds can be for them to operate safely. So that may be an issue that slows them down some. The ice itself is not going to be an issue, but the winds could slow them down. All right, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up now. I've reached the bottom of my briefing. We've been going on here for about an hour. If you have a question that I missed for some reason, or if you think of one while you're viewing this as a recording, feel free to send us a message on Facebook. I'll be happy to answer your questions. We are also on X. You can send us a message on there. We are also on Instagram. You can send us a message on there. You can send me an email directly if you'd like. My email is on your screen there. It's my name with a dot in the middle, donald.jones@noaa.gov. You can also give us a call here at the Weather Service office in Lake Charles, area code 337-477-5285, and we'll be happy to answer your questions that way. So lots of ways to get in touch with us if you still do have questions about what to expect or what to do about it. Our next briefing will be 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. We'll have all the latest and greatest updates for you at that time. These graphics that I've been showing you here this evening will be posted on our social media pages shortly, just as soon as we get off our briefing here. So if you want to see them in more detail, be on the lookout for those there. Again, next briefing, 7 a.m. this morning. Everyone have a wonderful rest of your evening. Stay safe, stay dry, stay warm. We'll talk to you again tomorrow morning.